welcome back to Fondling Cardboard. Now, I've been told I've got a smooth voice on this podcast, and today's going to be extra buttery smooth because we've got a guest in town. My own mother is visiting, and she is occupying my recording studio, which is aka my sanctuary. So I've bundled up some of my cards, headed into the kitchen, and after everybody's gone to sleep, I'm fondling some cardboard. In today's episode, we're going to get into another conversation with John Morton, our expert in pre-war vintage golf cards. And after our first conversation, John came across not only the holy grail of golf cards, but the original one-of-one holy grail golf card from over 100 years ago. So today we break down the importance of it, and John tells a story of what it's like to come across that card. Now we're actually going to kick things off a little bit different than usual. We're going to begin with Card of the Week Spotlight, and then move into Collector's Corner before I can finally get to the interview with John. So the Card of the Week Spotlight this week is the 1927 Churchman Bobby Jones, R.T. Jones, from the same famous golfers set. And this is a tobacco card that was in a pack of cigarettes. Or maybe it was cigars, I don't know. This is graded by PSA in a good condition PSA 2. Now the reason I picked this card is it's basically my only pre-war vintage card. And this is not the Holy Grail card that John and I are going to be talking about, but I just thought it sort of fit the theme. The only fun story about this card that I have is that when I bought it, I thought I was buying Bobby Jones's rookie card because it has the identical image as Bobby Jones' rookie card. However, this was printed and released a year after his rookie card. And the only difference is some slight styling changes. Now in the Collector's Corner segment, there's actually quite a bit I could talk about this week. But in the essence of being quiet for my household, I'm just going to share one funny story from the past couple weeks. I ordered a card from eBay from a seller in Germany, of all places. And I got a good deal because it seems like people around the world weren't bidding on this guy's auctions. Now when I was ecstatic to find the package in the mail, I opened it up, and to my surprise, the frickin' card didn't have any protection. It was literally shipped in a penny sleeve. There was no top loader, no cardboard to keep it rigid. I mean, it was in a bubble mailer with, actually it was even worse, it had a tissue wrapped around the penny sleeve. A Kleenex. Like, how on earth is that going to protect the card from getting bent or dinged? Now I contemplated, what do I do here? Do I contact eBay and tell them the card is damaged? In which case they'd probably ask me to send it back to him. Do I contact the seller and chastise him for not having good shipping practices? Do I just accept the card and leave negative feedback so that others can be warned against this seller? Now at the end of the day, I decided not to do any of those things. I don't want to report it as lost or damaged or whatever because it actually wasn't, shockingly enough. And I don't really feel like reaming out some German guy because at the end of the day, I probably won't be buying any more cards from him. And the card fits perfect in my collection. And a year from now, when I am admiring the card, I'm sure I'll remember how it showed up. But there won't be any signs of it on the card itself, fortunately. Before I throw you to the interview, I'm going to politely ask that you like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a rating, whatever it is on the platform you're on. I really appreciate it because it gets my show in front of other people like you who might enjoy the podcast and grow the community of golf cards. Thanks. You texted me some pictures about a golf convention you went to, and I knew immediately we got to talk again and throw this on the podcast. So why don't you kind of set the scene of what convention you were at and what it is you saw?
I made a trip up to Lexington, Kentucky for the annual convention for the Golf Heritage Society. For an annual meeting, they get together for a couple of days. They play some golf at a local golf course. They usually play one or two rounds. Then they'll have a couple of days of different meetings with guest speakers. My schedule didn't allow me to go up there for the whole week, but I at least drove up Friday night to spend Saturday for the trade show. It was probably upwards of 75, 80, 85 vendors or tables, 6, 8 foot tables in this hotel convention room. Again, it's all golf historical kind of focused and centric. So most of it is pre 1975. I'll just kind of put a ballpark number on that, with a vast majority of it being pre-World War II, pre 1950. But was fortunate to be able to go up, set up a couple tables actually at the trade show myself. Most importantly, from the standpoint of that day, I saw something that literally left me speechless, as you well know.
For those of you who haven't been to a card show, I assume everybody who's listening has been, but you walk into normally like a gymnasium or a convention center, and there can be in some cases hundreds of tables, 200, 400, 500 tables set up. And when you have a particular niche, you and I are obsessed with golf cards. You wander around these conventions and you are like praying that you'll find a single table that has a couple golf cards. So when you just described 40 or 50 or 60 or whatever tables, I just wanted to give that into perspective, because people might not think that's a big show, but when it comes to niche people that are obsessed like us, that is just sounds like a dream world. And the other thing I'll say is, when is this convention coming to Canada?
That's a good question. I'm not on the board, so I can't speak to that possibility. But what I will tell you is that next year's the annual meeting always is in the fall, is in usually September, October. Next year's meeting, I don't remember the exact dates, but if you look up the Golf Heritage Society's website, you can find the exact dates. It is going to be in Pinehurst, North Carolina. So if there is any year to attend, to make a trip work out for it, next year is it, because it is literally in the home of golf in the United States. So it's going to be a lot of fun next year for sure.
Right on. Well, I doubt I'll make it to Pinehurst, but I hope that a lot of our listeners join you there, John. So before we reveal the particular thing that you came across, could you just describe what was the atmosphere like?
I'll just use the ballpark number of 75. Out of the 75 different tables, I will say kind of the percentage of tables that had golf cards in any quantity, let alone were heavy in golf cards, was very, very small. There's a lot of golf club collectors and vendors and sellers. There's also a lot that have a lot of books, publications, things of that nature. I'd say clubs probably make up 25 to 30% of the tables that I saw. Books maybe 10 to 15%. And then the balance, the other half of the tables, really is an eclectic mix of a variety of collectibles, memorabilia, some signed, some non-signed, some cards. But again, a vast majority of it, I'd say 95+% of this trade show are items that are from pre 1950. So for anybody that is interested in history, let alone golf history of any kind, not just American golf history, but all golf history, this was and you're absolutely in heaven. I can put it that way, and I absolutely am when I'm there.
Well, that sounds amazing. My heart sank just a little bit when you said there was such a low percentage of golf cards. So I love golf history. I love golf in every facet. As a collector, I really have to zero in. And our Facebook group is called Golf Cards and Memorabilia, because as you just described, there's so many collectors who prefer the actual artifacts of golf as opposed to little pieces of cardboard. So I would personally have a great time walking around there, but I'd be, specifically trying to chase down the cards. Sounds like a pretty cool experience. There's one thing that you didn't mention, which was artwork. So did you come across any kind of art pieces?
I'd say most of the artwork that I saw were, lower value reproductions. that somebody might buy for, 20, 50, $100, something like that. That's in a nice frame.
I was trying to set you up there for the big punchline.
As vendors, we could get in at 7:30, and then technically the trade show didn't open up until 9. So after I set my tables up, I started meandering around because I wanted to do some shopping myself. And I stumbled upon a table that had all higher end items, all real, original, authentic memorabilia and collectibles. And there was one framed item in particular that jumped out at me. It literally almost jumped out at me because it was sitting on a display. It was a framed piece that had a rookie card of old Tom Morris, young Tom Morris, and Allen Robertson sitting next to each other in this frame. But they were on the bottom row of this frame display. And the top row was the identical images of their 3 individual rookie cards. And I looked at it, and a light bulb partially went on in my brain. And as I was staring at it for what probably was 5 to 10 seconds, the gentleman that owns it and was at the table noticed that I was looking, and I said, "I think I do, but confirm for me." And he said, "It's the original artwork, the actual original paintings, hand paintings that were made for and used for the creation of old Tom Morris, young Tom Morris, and Al Robertson's rookie cards." I thought that's what it was, but when he confirmed that for me, that stopped me dead in my tracks. And I don't think I said another word for at least a minute or two as I just stared at it.
I think that would have been my reaction too. That's a pretty mind-blowing artifact to come across, because when you look at the actual cards, I mean, they're rare enough as it is. They're 123 years old or whatever it is. And when you think about historical cards, they, get thrown off into the garbage or put between bike spokes and whatever. But there's still, dozens and in some cases hundreds of them left. The original artwork is a true one of one. And in our last episode, we talked about this card, Old Tom, as being the grail card of pre-war. So not only is this like an aspect of the grail card, it's the one of one version of the grail card.
It is. It absolutely is. And one of the few instances for me as a collector in life where I saw something and it wasn't in a museum, and it truly left me speechless, because there are, understandably so, when you go to a museum, there are things that are going to leave you speechless, but to see something that is in private hands that leaves you speechless because of the rarity of it, it gave me chills, and it still does. It's giving me chills right now thinking about it. After I left, as I went through the day, my mind kept thinking about trying to identify a comparable object in other sports cards, in baseball or basketball or hockey cards. And what's so unique about it is there really isn't anything that compares to it, because when you think about baseball cards and the holy grail of baseball cards, for instance, whether it's Honus Wagner's T206 or Mickey Mantle's 1952 Topps card, those were cards that were based off of real photographs. So those photographs, while incredibly rare and while they sell for tremendous prices and have a tremendous amount of value, there are multiple of those original photographs, those type 1 photographs. Whereas with these cards, they weren't based on actual photographs. They were based on, the drawings were originally, pulled from photographs, but these were hand drawn. And this was the actual original hand drawn artwork of these 3 individuals, these 3 biggest individuals in the history of the game of golf prior to 1900, prior to World War II, essentially. So there really isn't anything that compares to it even in the baseball card world, which is what is truly mind-blowing about it.
You hit the nail on the head. Old sports cards are traditionally based off of photography, and a type 1 photograph can have multiple versions, because the definition is a photo that's been produced from the original um, film within the first 2 years of the photograph. And so sometimes there
Mhm.
are only one of one photographs, but you can produce as many as you want from a film strip. You mentioned that you had talked to the seller or the person that had set up this table for 20 minutes or more. So, what kind of stories did you get from that conversation?
Yeah, so I after my brain came back down from floating up as high as it did, thinking about what I was holding in my hands in this frame. Uh, I got a little bit of the backstory from this gentleman. He owns a golf collectibles store in North Carolina, but he's been collecting these types of items almost his entire life, and he used to know an individual that was trying to collect the original artwork for all 50 cards from the Copes Golfer set that these original artworks were from. And this individual, throughout his life, up until his death, was only able to find and procure, I think he said, either 37 or 38 of the 50. So a full lifetime of searching for these, and he was only able to find 37 or 38 of them. He wasn't able to complete the set. And this individual that I was talking with that owns it now was able to procure those three key ones, those three biggest cards in that set, and get them framed alongside the other mind-blowing piece to this. The cherry on top is that the actual cards that were in this frame, along with the original artwork, were in phenomenal condition. Would probably be solid mid grades if they were to be graded by themselves, like 4 or 5, at least 4 or 5, if not 6s for each of these three cards, which by itself is an incredible condition to find it in. But for all three to be there, along with the artwork, it really just set it apart.
Well, there you go. Those listeners who want to make some money flipping cards, go buy this art setup and you can grade them and increase the value. So,
It was quite something to be able to hold that history in my hands, and I did just out of curiosity. I had to ask him how much he was asking for it, just to see if it was as I suspected, way out of my price range. But I couldn't walk away with at least identifying what that ask was going to be.
and that ask was
$35,000.
okay. Well, hey, that actually sounds really reasonable for somebody that has the money.
It does, and it is a very fair price. That was the other thing that kept rolling around in my brain throughout the day was how could I potentially obtain that amount of money without my wife getting pissed at me so that I could buy it, because I think this is worth a heck of a lot more than $35,000 because of the rarity of it. And when we talk about the rarity of these three cards, for perspective for everybody listening, the old Tom Morris rookie card, which is the most famous golf card in the set, or most famous card in the set, and Mike, to your point earlier from our previous discussion in our first call or our first podcast together, it is without doubt the holy grail of all golf cards. There have been it's a good bit less than 100 of old Tom Morris's rookie cards that have ever been graded between the big three grading companies, PSA, SGC, and Beckett. I think it's probably somewhere between 60 and 70, based on the last time I looked at it, a month or two ago. So with that being said, when we talk about rarity as compared to this price, mid-grade, i.e. PSA 4, PSA 5, PSA 6, somewhere in that neighborhood, copies of old Tom's rookie card have sold this year for anywhere from $5,000 to $6,000. So thinking about that value of just his card, let alone adding the value of his son, young Tom's rookie card, and Allen Robertson's rookie card, who was old Tom Morris's mentor early in old Tom's life, the value of all three of those cards put together is probably equivalent to 30 to 40% of what this gentleman was asking for this piece. So the fact that you were getting, or you would get, the actual original artwork, it is a very fair price, and something that, comparative to any other sport in the world, literally any other sport in the world, when it comes to the original artwork or imagery, even photographs of the holy grail of that sport, it's a very reasonable price in my humble opinion.
Yeah, and of course, we don't know for certain that it would grade a 4, 5, or 6, but judging by its appearance, if it did, that sounds like a heck of a deal. And I would have thought it would be a heck of a deal, to be frank, even without those 3 cards. It just sounds like the right price to me, if not low.
Yeah,
Did he mention how much he paid for it whenever he procured it and when he bought it?
I didn't think to ask him either of those questions, unfortunately. So I don't know how much he actually bought them for, or how long he's owned them.
Well, the last thing I'll ask about this particular find is, what kind of takeaways did you get from the experience? I mean, obviously you can stand there in awe. I would have had the same reaction as you. My jaw would have hit the floor, and I would have tried to sit there for 20 minutes, enjoying it and asking questions. But what kind of lessons did you get from talking to this guy and just from the experience of this story?
Yeah, the couple things that I took away from it, or were reinforced for me, as is the case when I go to really any card show, or any memorabilia event of any kind, especially when it's something like this event that has so much golf to it, and so many golf collectors with it. It is just knowing that there are other folks out there that appreciate what you appreciate, and follow and collect what you collect, regardless of how small of a niche it is that you like to focus on. But the other thing is that, whatever that niche is, there are folks out there that not only collect them, but appreciate them for the history that they bring to this hobby. And that's, when I stand and talk with anybody, whether it was this individual, this gentleman at the trade show, or somebody coming up to my table later that day and asking me questions about items that are on my table, there are, no matter how small of a niche you collect in, there are always other folks that appreciate that history and appreciate what it is that you collect. It's just a matter of finding that group, finding that niche, from a collectible and a meeting standpoint, and being able to converse with them.
Right on. And I'm sure you would have gotten that lesson from just going to the show in general, talking to all of these passionate people about the golf hobby, looking at this particular piece of artwork. A few of my takeaways are, don't try to collect an entire complete set of one of ones, because it's probably impossible. One of them's probably burned down in a house fire, and one of them's probably got lost in the trash. Another silly one, always have 30 grand in your bank account for emergency purchases.
Yes, that was the biggest takeaway for me.
Yeah, no,
Biggest
but
mistake.
but in a serious note, when I heard your story, I thought, and you and I were talking about this before. When I'm participating in the hobby, I'm picking up all of these random pieces that may or may not fit perfectly in my lane. I might spend $20 here, $50 there. On occasion, I might splurge and buy a card that's worth a couple $100. And it is kind of my style of collecting. So I'm not necessarily saying I regret the way that I've been participating. But if I were to just snap out of it and pull it together, man, I would try and focus on that holy grail piece for me. And it might not necessarily be this piece of artwork, because I focus a little bit more on 2001 and newer golf cards. But just dedicating
Mm-hmm.
at least a sizable part of your collecting experience, trying to figure out what it is that's your holy grail, and then going after it. And it might be a chase that lasts a couple of weeks and you find it and you happen to have the resources to pick it up. But it might be something that takes years for you to track down or for you to save up or for you to kind of turn over your collection and grow it until you can finally afford that piece of the puzzle. So you've inspired me to reset my thinking and find out what my holy grail is and find a way to get it at someday.
It's the big thing to keep in mind for everybody that's listening is that if you have something that you're wanting to go after, you're wanting to find, you're wanting to hunt down some type of rare item, collectible card, whatever it might be, the best, if it's truly a rare piece, the best way to go about finding it is to be active in the hobby. Be active in Facebook groups, in Twitter or X, in Instagram. Engage with followers and other collectors, because the more you engage with them, the more you engage with others, the more that circle of knowledge is going to expand for you in terms of collectors that are out there, which is going to expand the opportunity that that rare item can somehow find its way to you. So engaging with others, engaging through social media, is the engaging through local card shows, regional card shows, national card shows. That is the way to go about finding and tracking down that rare piece that you want to go after.
Right on, John. That's a good segue to let everybody know where they can reach us. So I'm the administrator for the Golf Cards and Memorabilia group on Facebook. I've recently actually changed my Instagram handle. So I used to be golf_card_collector. I am now the golf card collector. And yeah, feel free to connect with me, John. Give a little shout out for yourself.
Yeah, so I'm most active on Twitter or X, and my handle is at John Morton, JOHNMORTON 215. Same handle on Instagram. Admittedly, I'm not as active on Instagram, but those are the two big platforms